All right, guys, so this is the last section of chapter 15. It's writing equations of quadratics using the calculator. So we're going to use the calculator to write all our equations, and it's very similar to what we did when we did linear. So the first thing it asks you to do is to clear your calculator. You'll press second, then the plus sign, and 712. It's a good thing to know if when you do this, it should say RAM cleared at the end. All it's doing really is getting rid of anything that might be in your lists and stats so that we don't have any problems with that when we get there. So you can go through that if you want to. So we're going to be using the stat feature in our calculator for this lesson pretty much exclusively. The problem we're going to be working with first says the table shows the download times in seconds of a particular computer network that requires to download the given megabytes of data. It says find a quadratic function, f of x or y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, that provides a reasonable fit to the data. So here's the table. We have file size, looks like that's going to be our x values, our independent values. We have download times, which are going to be our y values, our dependent variables. So the way you do this is we're going to go into stat. So I've got my calculator up here. I have some stuff in here. I'm going to go into stat and edit. Okay, we've been here before. Now, if there are things left in there, and it explains this lower in the steps, you can go up to L2, hit clear, enter. It'll clear it out. Go up to L1, hit clear, enter. If you hit delete, it's going to cause problems. Now, and all these steps, guys, are listed out below this. I'm not going to kind of move a whole lot. You can look at the calculator. So I'm going to enter my x values into L1. So 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, enter, 4, enter, and 5, enter. And I'm going to double check because I don't want to mess that up. I'm going to go over to L2 and put in my y values. Be careful with decimals. 2.9, enter. 6.5, enter. 12.3, enter. 20.3, enter. And 30.5, enter. I'm going to double check, make sure I have them in right, and it looks like I do. Now if we move down our page here, we just did numbers 5 and 6. We put our y values into L1 and our x values into L1 and our y values into L2. It says once all the data has been put in, you're going to go back to stat. So I'm going to get my calculator out, and I'm just following the rules. I hit stat. I'm going to go over to calc. Now before when we did this, we used number 4 because we were talking about linear equations. Now we're talking about quadratics. We're going to use 5. It should say quad reg on your calculator, and you're going to hit enter. Now the answer to this is on the back, on the next page, I'm sorry. And if you look at number 12, that's what your calculator should say. If we look at mine, it says the same things. Now we can use that to write our equation. It gives you a little base equation to plug things into, and then it gives you A, B, and C. Just plug them in. So I have y equals 1.1 x squared plus 0.3x plus 1.5. So there's your equation. So be careful when you're putting in your lists, and you should get the right one every time. Now, on your homework, and it's going to happen a couple of times, they're going to ask you a couple of questions. They're going to be very similar to both of these that we're about to do. The first one says, what would be the download time for a 15 megabyte file? Well, if you look back at my table, my megabytes were my x values. So this is an x value, or an independent value. So all I have to do is plug that in for x and solve for y. So I have y equals 1.1 times 15 squared plus 0.3 times 15 plus 1.5. Now you need to put that in your calculator exactly how it's written, parentheses and all. Then you have your answer. It's 253.5. Now I want to make sure I have my correct label on there. We plugged in megabytes for x. That means we're getting out time, and in this case is seconds. So it takes 253.5 seconds to download a 15 megabyte file. Now the next one, let me move down a little bit here. This one's going to have a little bit more work in it. It says how big would the file have to be if it takes 5 minutes to download? Well, now they're giving us a y value, they're giving us time. But they gave us time in minutes, but we need it in seconds. So I'm going to take my 5 minutes, multiply it by how many seconds there are in a minute. So 5 times 60, I got 300 seconds. So that's what I need to plug in for y. So I have 300 equals 1.1 x squared plus 0.3x plus 1.5. Now, this is actually a straight up calculator thing. You guys that need to take the retest, this is how you're going to do it when you take the retest. We're finding solutions or X-intercepts. That's how we're going to get our X value for how long it takes to download, or how many megabytes we can download in 5 minutes. To do that, I have to subtract 300 from both sides. So I'm going to subtract 300 from both sides, and that leaves me with 0 equals, well, I can't subtract 300 from anything with x, so 1.1x squared plus 0.3x. Now I need 1.5 minus 300, and I got minus 298.5. Now, we're going to use the calculator to solve this, okay? So I'm going to get out my calculator, and I'm going to put this equation that we just wrote into y1. Let me clear mine out a little bit here. So I'm going to put 1.1x squared plus 0.3x minus 298.5. Now I want to find my x-intercepts or my solutions, so I need to put 0 into y2. Now I'm going to look at my graph. Now yours may not look like that. Yours may not show anything. It's because it's a big graph. So I hit zoom, 3, enter. Now I can see both of those intersections, and that's what I need to find. Now, normally we'd find both of them, but in this one, the negative one's not going to help us at all because we can't download negative megabytes. So we just need to look for the positive one. So I'm going to hit second, trace, and I'm going to hit 5. And I'm going to move over until I get close to that intersection. There it is. See how the cursor's blinking pretty close to it? I'm going to hit enter 1, 2, 3 times. Now I have my answer. It says that my intersection happens at x equals 16.3. So x equals 16.3, and since that's an x value, that means megabytes. Now that seems logical because the last one said it took 253 seconds for 15, so 300 for a little over 16 megabytes seems to make sense. That's as hard as it's going to get, guys. Use your calculators. Y2 has to be 0. So let's go on and do 2 more little equations here. Now, when we did the linear equations, you had to have 2 points. That was it. You can get any linear equation from 2. Well, when we're doing quadratics, that's the same, except we need 3 points. So as long as we have 3 points, we can get our quadratic equation. Number 1 says find the equation of the quadratic passing through 6, 2, 7, -4, and 3, -4. Use the calculator. You're going to put your x's in L1 and your y's in L2. So let's go back here. I'm going to go into stat and edit, but I have stuff in my lists. So I'm going to go up to L2, clear, enter. I'm going to go up to L1, hit clear, and enter. I don't want extra numbers. So my x values are 6, enter, 7, enter, and 3, enter. Then the y that goes with 6 is 2, enter. -4 goes with 7, enter. And another -4 goes with 3, enter. So I've got my stuff in my lists. I'm going to hit stat. I'm going to go to the right to calc. I'm going to use 5, and I'm going to hit enter. And that will give me my equation. It says that A is -2, B is 20, C is -46. If you didn't get those, you need to check your lists and make sure you put them in right. So I have y equals -2x squared plus 20x minus 46. It didn't ask us to do anything else. That's all we've got to do. Okay? One more. This is basically the same thing, except now they've given us a graph and they want the equation of the graph. Well, it still blatantly told us 3 points, so let's just plug those in. I'm going to go to stat, then enter. And I only have 3 things to put in, so you can clear them out, but we have enough to replace it. So -3 is one of my x's. Enter. 0.5 is another. Enter. And 4 is another. Now I'm going to come back and put in the y values. At -3 we're at 0. At 0.5 we were at -12.25. And then at 4 we were at 0. Hit stat, right, 5, enter, and you have your equation. So there's 2 ways you could write this. I'm going to write a y equals 1x squared minus 1x minus 12. But you could also say y equals x squared minus x minus 12. Now, watch out on your homework. A lot of them say quadratics, but the last, I think, 4 problems are linear equations. So if you're going to plug those into your lists, you're going to use 4, the linear regression, instead of 5. Hope that's good, guys. This is the last section of the chapter. We got a test next week, so if you have any questions, let me know. Good luck.